All right, what's happening, everyone? Welcome back for another episode of the Chamber Podcast. My name is Rob Johnson, and joining me remotely in our virtual studio today is Summer Poquette. She is the founder and CEO of Keep It Real Social. Summer, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
I'm glad to have you. This is the first time we've done nearly 80 shows here. This is the first time we've had someone that's in the same industry that I'm in on the show. So this is exciting for me to, talk something I know pretty deeply, and I know you do as well. So welcome.
Thanks. Yeah, it's exciting to be able to talk to a fellow professional that gets what I do and, definitely understands working with small businesses.
Perfect. So Summer, let's go back. I'm always curious the origin story of how digital agencies are started. So can you give me a rundown of what brought Keep It Real Social into existence?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was actually a teacher back in, another chapter of my life or another book of my life, depending on how you look at it. So I went into education. I was going to become a teacher. I had children. I took a job working for the state of Michigan in advocacy, and that role really had a lot of marketing to it. And I just fell in love with marketing. At the exact same time, I jumped into the blogosphere in 2007. So the wild, wild west of the mom bloggers. So I was technically one of those mommy bloggers. And I worked with brands, small, large, flew all over the United States for years, being catered. I guess I was one of the first influencers, if that's, I guess, what you want to call it. Brands would fly us in and they would, talk to us about their initiatives, and we would blog and, have Twitter parties. Back in the days, that was the thing. We'd have Twitter parties and we would do all sorts of PR things for different companies. So I just really fell in love with marketing. I started working in marketing. I kind of left education behind. I became a marketing director for an education company, and I was always moonlighting. Had my company in 2007. I was blogging. But in 2018, there was just a lot of, I had a lot of demand for marketing coming at me, and I couldn't be a marketing director. I couldn't be a blogger and also run a business. I just couldn't do it all. So I essentially in 2008 said I was going to leave being a director of marketing for a company. I was going to sell my blog. Yes, you can sell blogs just like you can a house. I sold my blog as real estate and took all of that money and invested it into opening an agency. At first, it was really supposed to be just social because that's what was coming to me at the time. It was just a lot of demand for social. And as the agency grew and the client base grew, we really had a lot of needs for all marketing. So, we had a lot of branding coming at us. People needed ads, billboards, you name it. And so we just kind of grew as the demands grew.
So you say you started with social media. What was the most surprising request that came in that you decided to turn into a recurring service?
That's a good question. I definitely think one of the biggest requests that we were receiving, we just had a lot of requests for rebranding and branding. And at the time, I'd hired a creative director. She's really strong in branding and rebranding and telling a brand story through, brand development. And so we kind of took the agency in that direction, which was great because a lot of clients come to us and they hadn't really thought of how they were going to name their business. They threw together a Canva logo. They didn't really know the next steps. And as they grew, they needed to actually think about those next steps of, actually putting together a brand identity. So that was probably the most surprising. I didn't see that coming my way in 2018. But we also in 2018 had a lot of requests for, and it's grown, social media advertising.
Okay, great. So what social media platforms do you predominantly advertise on for small businesses?
So we predominantly focus on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Google Business. Even though Google Business Profile and Pinterest aren't really considered social, they're search engines. Those are definitely really big, platforms that we use. We do TikTok and all those other platforms, but our main focus is, the big three, I guess you could call them.
Okay. So you have social media. I saw on your website, you guys do web design as well.
We do, yes. So we work with a local partner. We actually do the wireframes and the design, and then our partner actually does the build out.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So 2018 to 2023, what's the growth been like in the business? What was it like during COVID? Talk to me about kind of the 5-year overview and what that
Yeah.
looks like.
Yeah. So in 2018, I was solo. I was myself. I had a few contractors. I took a really big contract with our McLaren Northern Michigan Foundation, our largest nonprofit in the area. And I didn't really know what was going to happen. I knew I needed more than just myself to grow an agency, but you have to start somewhere. So I went from a team of one the first year to I hired my first full-time person the second year. And now we have a team of 6 full-time. And then we do have a few contractors that work with us part-time, photography, videography, those type of contractors that are actually local, which is great.
Good. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think's been the biggest challenge to running and growing an agency over the last 5 years for yourself?
I mean, I think you can probably relate to this. You know what you're doing in terms of marketing and social, but learning how to grow a team and develop that culture is something that they don't really teach you. You have to learn as you go. I know where my weaknesses are and my strengths are. But just wearing the many different hats as a business owner. And so I can really relate to small businesses when they come to work with me, because I get how they're busy doing a million different things. And like for me, I don't like the accounting aspect. I don't like the money aspect, right? So I know, I mean, I like seeing the money come in, but I don't like dealing with the spreadsheets and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But give me a Facebook analytics all day long. I'll deal with those numbers. But so, learning what I'm good at and where I have to, delegate, and then building that team and that culture.
That's one of the biggest challenges is when you start a company, and this is absolutely the same case with myself, is you have a certain layer of organizational development that you didn't consider as the company grows. And that
Totally.
looks like accounting, it looks like legal, human resources. Those are all major pillars of a small business that are usually neglected. And they're so important to do from the beginning. And I've done several shows talking about all of those things I should have done in the beginning to try and help other people who are getting started, because you miss those things. And as you grow, I've learned a lot from my employees. They teach me more than books or any other resources on what to do in the next level, because I'm learning as I go in that size of a company. I tell people all the time, I've never done this before. I've never ran a company of 10, then 11, then 12. Every time we add another employee, I'm in new territory, and
Absolutely.
it's scary.
It is. It's scary. It's an adventure, and then at the same time, I also really love working with the clients and managing the client accounts too. So having my, basically my feet in both, I ride the fence, right? I'm managing certain clients' accounts. I'm out there selling. I'm promoting. I'm marketing the business. But then at the same time, I'm being a leader. I'm managing the books. I'm responsible for the future and the vision of the company, deciding, gosh, is the space that we're in big enough? Do we have everything that the team needs? So there are a lot of things that, small business ownership is not for everybody. And I have a couple employees that definitely agree. They're like, I don't want to do what you do. I am so happy being an employee. So yeah, but it's an adventure. I would not have it any other way.
Yeah, statistically, it's not for a majority of people. People that get into it, and after 5 years, depending on where you look at numbers, anywhere between 50 and 90% is the ranges I see no longer exist. And with digital agencies, it's even higher, the turnover.
Yeah,
Because people
definitely.
get into it. People get into it because they think, oh, I can make a lot of money recurring, but they don't think about client retention, new business.
Client retention. Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, there's a lot to think about, and your employees are teaching you a lot. I learn a lot from the small businesses I work with too. I hear their stories and what they're going through, and I try to learn from that when they're having struggles. And then how can I best help them too?
Awesome. One of the things I'm curious about, and this is probably going to be a more niche topic for the listening audience, but what do you find is the best way to communicate analytics and data back to a client in a way that's understandable to them?
Mm. Boy, we have really, in the last 5 years, gone from everything where we meet with them monthly and sit down and look at every single thing. Most people are way too busy for that, right?
Yep.
They just don't have the time. We've developed really large reports and sent them off, and nobody opens them, and then 2 months later they ask questions and we're like, well, it was in the report we sent you along with the Loom video that you never watched. And so we've really gone through a lot of different ways of reporting it. Honestly, it depends on the client. Every client is different. Some clients want us to meet with them monthly and we'll go over everything. Some clients log into their dashboard that we use with their analytics that update quarterly. And it really comes down to the onboarding. When we onboard them, explaining the metrics that we're going to be looking at, the metrics that our goals, and showing them how to use the dashboard. Whether they log in and look at the dashboard with analytics, I'm not sure, but we really focused on that portion at the onboarding time, in those first 6 months, kind of training them to understand the analytics, though I don't think everyone cares as much as
Yeah.
some clients, right? So they just want to see their numbers grow. They want to see their web traffic grow. They want the sales, the ROI.
Yeah. And that's a difficult thing to explain to some business owners sometimes is ROI is not immediate. And anyone that promises that it is a novice. Nothing happens overnight.
Yeah,
So I explain
absolutely.
this all the time, and I'm sure you do as well, is, when I run an ad campaign,
Mhm.
if you expect results in the first 7 days, you should probably go see someone else, but they're going to disappoint you on that as well.
Yeah. And they're going to promise you a lot of things. I see
Hmm.
that often. Someone will come to me, and they've been promised the world. They're expecting instantaneous results. And like I suggest that maybe we're not the right fit if that's what they're expecting. I think there's a misconception that you can run ads and you can have a social media campaign, or you can be on every channel out there on social media, and then all of a sudden you're going to have an increase in business. And I think people forget that when you start out in social, this is the beginning. Right. There's so many other layers. I guess we can talk about it in terms of the funnel, lots of different, ways that we can visualize it. But you're really looking at such a broad audience. And unless I don't feel like someone who is coming to us looking for social media assistance and expecting immediate results, that they can have that if we are not part of all of their marketing pieces, right? So,
Yeah.
we have to be a part of their website and the landing pages, the emails, the workflow, all of that. And then you can hold me accountable for ROI. But if it's just social, that's the very top of the funnel, and it's really broad.
Yeah. And you worded it perfectly same thing. I have to have some type of control or oversight of the entire client cycle. I
Hmm.
can't just have one portion
Absolutely.
of it. And that's why I've leaned very heavily into the consultation side of the business of
Hmm.
it's not just, as you've recognized, it's not just social media, it's the
No.
entire funnel. And you need to be able to walk people through that and coach people through that so they can understand, well, I made 10 Facebook posts this month. Why is my business not exploding? It's like, it doesn't work that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I think when a lot of clients will come to us and they just need help on the social side. And that's a great first step. And that's how they might come, through the door for us. Perhaps they had their neighbors, brothers, uncles, cousin who graduated from the University of Michigan that was managing, their account. And then all of a sudden they can't get in. They don't know what a business manager is. They don't know their Twitter password. And so we basically get this ball of yarn that we start to unravel, and we fix everything for them. And we start with the social, but then it's that next step. Okay, how is your website performing? How is it developed? What is the search engine optimization? Okay, you don't have a Google business profile. How are people finding you? It's the first step in the door, but there are so many more next steps that we take. And I think the social media is a great first step, like I said, but there are a lot. Are you doing email marketing? What is your local SEO strategy? And that's where we might start with something small, but usually most clients, we build up to a much more diverse, set of, set of services that we're offering them.
That's phenomenal. What is one of the most important things that you tell small business owners as a first step that they need to be aware of?
I think, it really depends on what their business is, but really the first step for all businesses, whether they're brick and mortar or they're, wherever they're doing business, is to have a Google business profile. I am shocked at the number of businesses that have not claimed or verified their Google business profile. That is completely free. That's the first step. And then I say, let's look at that website. That's your calling card, right? That's your online home base. And a lot of them have maybe built their own on Weebly or Wix, and they don't really know what they're doing, which is fine. Those are great platforms, but let's build it out. Let's make sure that it's optimized. Let's have, more than just stock imagery. And then third, even before I hit social, is let's get that email marketing set up, because your email marketing is really gold. You own that. Facebook can shut down tomorrow. Twitter can go down, but how are you going to communicate if you can't send out an email and you don't have your own database?
Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing I've always preached to small businesses is you need to treat yourself like you're a data company. It doesn't matter what you're in. Flower shop, making pastries, electrician, all of that data is valuable in some regard. And things sometimes, like I've been doing this long enough to where things I've touched 3 years ago are just now coming back around to close and turn into business. And if that works that way in my industry, you can be rest assured it works the same across all platforms, because all of those touches matter. And a lot of companies aren't treating themselves like a data company like they should.
Absolutely. Yeah. They're not collecting those leads. They're not finding a way to follow up with people. So many times you visit someone's website and, someone pops on your website, they leave. How have you collected their information? You haven't, if you haven't offered them something. And if they don't sign up for it, that's fine, but you have to have some way, whether that's they click over to Facebook and they connect with you there, or they click over to LinkedIn and they connect with you there. You have to have other touch points for people to connect with you, not just hop off your website.
Absolutely. So Summer, I was going to ask you, what do you think is one of the biggest things businesses miss when they come to see you? We talked about Google Business. That's a huge one. That's a free tool. And who knows how much longer it's going to be free. That's a tool that people need to look at. Tremendous value in that for small businesses. But what's one thing that you find that people are just missing every time they come and see you as you're doing that initial onboarding and consult?
Sure. A lot of people actually don't have their email set up. They're not even using something as simple as MailChimp or MailerLite. A lot of even the light free versions. That is one thing that's often missing. I'm amazed at how many small businesses are not capitalizing and utilizing Pinterest marketing. I know it's not for everyone, but I just recently had a flower shop. They do wedding flowers. They're huge. They're rated on the knot. And she's not doing anything on Pinterest. And I about fell out of my chair, because I'm like, this is such, she's having these $1 million weddings that she's doing. People will fly in and fly out, and they get married in beautiful Petoskey and Bay Harbor in northern Michigan. And it's just this platform that is there's so much potential for, and especially if you have great content on your website. If you're
Yeah.
blogging regularly, I'm always surprised at how many small businesses are not utilizing Pinterest as a tool for marketing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. What's an ideal client look like for you? Is it more product-based business, more service-based business? Like if you had a dream client walk through the door, what would they look like for you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Years ago, when I first started, I started a dream board, and everyone laughed at me. They thought, oh, that's silly, right? But, everything that I put on my dream board actually came to fruition. I said I wanted a car dealership. We have a great car dealership down in Charlotte that we're working with. I listed all of these clients that I really wanted. I don't have, and I know a lot of people would be surprised by this, but there's really not a certain ideal client, because we really can help clients in all different levels. But we are finding that we have a lot of larger nonprofits that are looking for marketing help. So they have sizable budgets. They've, been awarded grants, and they really need to now compete on this, in this new landscape for them. And they're not sure how to use social or how to use email marketing, because, the traditional ways of, raising money isn't working anymore. So we are
Right.
finding that that is something that we're having kind of a sweet spot with. But we have retail, we have, we're in the healthcare industry. We have businesses from all different, niches that we work with. So
That's
I don't
good.
know if that's a good or a bad answer.
No, that's a good answer. You don't,
Yeah.
it's not like I see agencies sometimes they'll go very niche. They'll say we only work with electricians.
Yeah.
That develops an interesting competitive dynamic.
It
And
is.
also
Yeah.
a trade secret problem that could potentially emerge if you're taking from one successful campaign and sharing with another.
That's probably one of the reasons that we don't. We are in a small
Yeah.
community, like yourself in Brighton, and if we are representing a pizza shop, right? If I represent a pizza shop on the next block, that is an issue for those mom and pop businesses, and they trust us when they come on board. Now, I work with an electric co-op. And if I worked with another electric co-op, they're not going to feel as competitive because there's not a lot of competition. It's all based on region and where you can get your electricity and natural gas from or whatever. But it's hard because you want to respect your current clients. You don't want to make
Yeah.
them feel as though you're, like you said, giving away trade secrets. And I listen to, probably like you, a zillion podcasts. I'm a big fan of Drew McClelland. I don't know if you listen to his
Mhm.
podcast, and he preaches about niching down. And that is one thing I've really struggled with. And just because I'm in a smaller area, that if I said I was only going to work with electricians, I probably wouldn't still be in business.
Yeah, and I hear that a lot. I actually heard a videographer speak recently, and they were talking about this concept of the riches being in the niches, and just because something rhymes doesn't mean it's true. Um, and I've found that if you go so niche, you're going to work yourself into a position where you have a tremendous competition with yourself. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
I tell people all the time is when I sign a dealership or a roofer or whoever it is. And the first question they typically ask me is, are you working with any other roofers in the area?
Yep.
And I can tell them no, because if I was, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now because I don't like to compete against myself.
Yep. That is 100% my philosophy. And if I ever think that there is any type of competition, I always talk to the client about that. So, for example, I had a really small retail store in Petoskey. Actually, she owned three retail stores, and a client on Mackinac Island contacted me. I don't think that they're competition, but I wanted to make sure that I
Sure.
gave her, that right to say, no, that is one of my biggest competitors. Maybe I didn't think of it that way, but maybe she did.
Yeah.
And so I think that you have, as long as you can lead with honesty and integrity, and treat your client the way you would want to be treated if I were working with a vendor, that's kind of how I like to think about it. But I've really struggled with that whole, niching down, and just it's been a struggle, but then I think, well, what I'm doing is really working for me. So, maybe Drew's not right. Sorry if Drew ever listens to this podcast, but
Yeah. I know he's a big listener.
yeah.
No, and it's just, does it work for your company? Like, can you scale it
Yeah.
the way that it is? And I think, when you're in a smaller market and as a digital agency, you can't niche unless you're going to go regional or national, and then that brings its own set of problems. So it's I certainly agree with your perspective on that.
Yeah. And we definitely work with clients all throughout the state of Michigan. I mean, like I said, we have a auto dealer down in Charlotte. We branched out into the Brighton area, which really, I know you before the show, you were wondering, like how are you down in Brighton, and why did you join the Brighton Chamber?
Yeah.
And what really ended up happening is we had an employee that was from Brighton, and she was living in Charlevoix, and she wanted to move home. And we supported that. So we said, all right, we're going to get involved in the community that you're from and that you live in. And I wanted to really embrace what she wanted. I think that's a big thing as being a business owner is, wanting to build up your employees and supporting them. And so I felt really lucky that she just wasn't going to leave the agency and go work for another agency, that she wanted to stick with us. So I also have a ton of family down in the Whitmer Lake, Brighton area. I'm extremely familiar with the area. And I thought, hey, this has always been a dream for us to kind of expand down there. And so let's do it.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you guys are here.
Yeah, thank you. And people can look at it as you and I might be competitors, but I don't think of it that way. There's plenty of business, and not every client is a great fit for my agency. And I'm sure not every client's a great fit for your agency.
Right.
And so
I
I think
can't,
that's why there's plenty of
there's,
work.
I tell people all the time, there's a literal 1,000 businesses are members of the Brighton Regional Chamber.
Mm-hmm.
I can't possibly service all of them. And to your point, nor would I want to in some respects.
Exactly.
Because just some people aren't a really good fit for us. Because
Totally.
I'm sure just like your agency, I'm interviewing them as a client just as much as they're interviewing me as an agency.
100%.
So sometimes there's going to be better fits. And conversely, you do things I don't do, and I do things you don't do. So there's always crossover. My problem historically with agencies has been, are they just getting people in the door, taking advantage of them, and then shipping their work overseas? And that's why historically I've had such a conflict with other agencies. And I was so happy when I was reading your agency and that you guys were coming into Brighton, because I think you and I have a very similar philosophy on how to treat and serve small businesses.
Yeah, we really like to be hands-on and to know our clients, to meet with our clients. Even Maddie, who is down in Brighton, she still services clients here in Petoskey. She comes up once a month. She meets with them all face to face in person.
Cool.
We really just think that that's extremely important. Of course, we've worked with contractors that we had a contractor in Florida, but at the time we had a large insurance agency that was throughout the entire state of Florida. So we looked for a contractor that was in the same state that the agency was in, that we were working with. So, we try to make sure that we can drive or see or, be face to face with a client at least once a month. It doesn't always happen. They get busy, we get busy, but that's what we strive for.
That's awesome. So Summer, as we look to close here, what's something that you want people to be aware of that's coming up, or something you're excited about for this year that you want to pitch as we move to close here?
I don't think there's anything specific that I want to pitch other than, we're really just like you, wanting to help small businesses be successful in their marketing and to spend their money wisely. I mean, you and I both own small businesses. We know that we don't like to waste our money, and we certainly don't want to waste our clients' money. And so when a small business is really challenged with the fact that they might be working with an agency or a partner, and they're not seeing the results that they want to see, or they're feeling frustrated, or maybe they've been taken advantage of, to really give yourself or me a call so that we can help them kind of unravel that ball of yarn and set them in the right direction so that they're successful. Because I'm not making $1 million. I'm not, buying a Corvette tomorrow and getting rich running this agency. But what I am doing, and I really feel like you're doing the same thing, is we are helping other small businesses stay in business and be successful. And I saw that over COVID. I mean, you needed to be online to survive. People that didn't have Google business profiles, they didn't have websites, they didn't have Facebook or email marketing, they were calling us left and right. And could that happen again? Quite likely. So you really need to make sure that you're prepared and you're online and that you're spending your money wisely. And that's really what we look to do. I mean, versus like you've probably heard the horror stories of, small businesses being ripped off. And that's exactly what I don't want to have happen.
Yeah. Yep. We are aligned on that. Absolutely. It's very frustrating for me when I see someone come in and they're like, oh, here's what I just did. And I'm like, oh man, I'm so sorry.
I know.
We're going to fix that. So
yeah, we're going to fix that for you. Yeah. And so I really, I want small businesses to feel like there are options for them. There are agencies that they can trust. And I think that that's really important because they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And they just really want to do their best to market and get their word out there about their business. They just don't know how.
No, I completely agree. Well, Summer, I appreciate your time today. It was fantastic talking with someone in the same wheelhouse that I operate in. So that was a nice change of pace for me.
That's great. Well, thanks. Well, I'm definitely, and when I'm in the area, we're going to have to get together and have a beer or a cup of coffee or something and chat business because it is exciting.
That sounds great. And real quick, we do have a meetup. It's a marketing panel. So
yes.
Is it Maddie from your team?
Yes. Maddie Shelton from my team will be on the panel with you and helping other businesses in Brighton and South Lyon and that area with their marketing needs.
Yep. So that's going to be taking place at the All Heart Garage. And then Jason Tracy, who's also been on this podcast before, will be on that panel as well. And I'll make sure those details make their way into the show notes for any listeners that want to check that. I know the chamber is pushing that really hard right now.
That's great. Yeah. I hope it goes well. I'm sure it will be.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much, Summer. We appreciate your time.
Great. Yes. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Take care. All right, everyone, that's going to wrap up this week's episode of the Chamber Podcast. We appreciate you watching, listening, whatever platform you do so on. Please feel free to leave us a review, drop a comment. Any feedback that you have is well appreciated. Thank you all for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Take care.